Hey everyone, it is Dave. Welcome into another edition of Culling My Collection. I'm going to walk you through 15 books tonight of books that I've had in the stacks, and it's a very eclectic group, just like most of these talks are going to be if they're coming from the stacks, because I store everything by size rather than by subject matter. And as I look through these, there's some mystery or ghost stories, there's some books about books. However, there is a lot of them on adventure. So I'm really excited to walk you through those. The first one, though, I'm going to share with you deals with art, and specifically art history. So one of the coolest books that you can read is by Giorgio Vasari, and it's called The Lives of the Artists. It is exactly what the title suggests. What he does is he walks you through all the artists of the Renaissance, beginning with Giotto and Duccio through Botticelli and Fra Angelico, and the book culminates, literally, the last quarter of the book is about Vasari's best friend, Michelangelo. Vasari is a painter himself. He paints very much like Michelangelo does, a little bit bulkier figures, muscular figures, and if you ever go to Florence, inside the Florence Cathedral, the Santa Maria dei Fiori, that is the interior of the dome is painted by Vasari. But in the mid-1500s, I want to say it's like 1550, that he writes this book. It is still a classic today. It has been obviously translated from Italian into English. It is smooth reading. It's great stories. Not only do we get biography of artists, but he also talks about the art of the time as well. So definitely, you want to read this book, Giorgio Vasari, The Lives of the Artists. The next book is also kind of art themed. It's called Two Lives. It's by Janet Malcolm, and it deals with Gertrude Stein and her partner Alice Toklas. What's cool about this book is not only do I remember reading this book, but if you look at some of the pages, I've made annotations. And so anytime I put like a page number down, it means that there's information that I want to go back to that deals with art, things that I can add to lectures and things like of that sort. This is really a great book that talks about Gertrude Stein. If you don't know who that is, she is an author, and she is also an art collector. Her, and along with her brothers, Michael and Leo, they started buying art from all these early modernist dealers, or not dealers, artists. And people like Picasso, Matisse, Cezanne, before people really started looking at them as going like, this work is amazing, they started buying it up. And today, I mean, if they had their collection intact, I mean, you're just looking at one painting would be worth about $20 million. I've seen a couple images of her apartment, and just like on the wall, you'd have a Matisse, woman with a green stripe, for instance, and that's a $20 million painting. And it's just like they saw something before everyone else did in these artists, and bought work no one else wanted. And even, I'll tell you, even Leo, Gertrude's brother, was like, this is ugly. And he still bought it. He's got a great quote. It says, he talks about this one painting. He goes, I'm going to need time to get used to looking at it. Let's look at some adventure books. So the first one is A River of Doubt. And this is by Candice Millard. It is about Teddy Roosevelt after he leaves the White House and he goes exploring the Amazon River. It is an interesting read. I will show you another one next that I like better as far as the Amazon part of the book. But this is really fascinating because it deals with an ex-president. It deals with his family, who there's some trouble, in his family as well. And it's a very interesting read. I will tell you, I remember reading this, a lot of it on jury duty when I was on that many years ago. But a very good book. probably, if I had to rate it, maybe a 7 out of 10. But the 10 out of 10 that deals with the Amazon is The Lost City of Z. If you have not read this yet, David Grann is the author, and it deals with Percy Fawcett, who goes into the Amazon multiple times. And it's interesting because it talks about a little bit about his home life. It talks about him bringing his son's friend into the Amazon, what they encountered, how they dealt with it. The sad part about this story, not that I'm telling you the ending, but they don't come out of the Amazon. And so that's always like one of the craziest things to think about. Where did they end up? His ring, though, he has this gold ring, was found. And it was brought to this lady who was like a tarot reader, type of person. And she's all, this ring has been covered in blood, she says. And that was always just such a creepy statement as far as I was concerned. So anyway, if you love adventure, unsolved mysteries, The Lost City of Z, nonfiction. Another great story along those lines is The Devil in the White City. So The Devil in the White City takes place in Chicago in 1893, and this is the time of the World's Fair. So this is one of the most important World's Fairs we have in America, and this deals not only with the fair, but also a person who lives like a couple of blocks away, who builds this incredible mansion that becomes like a horror mansion where people are killed. And I mean, he did things like he would have certain workers work on certain parts of the building, and then he would like fire them. And so the next workers would come in and they'd build on to that. And so they don't really know what the previous workers did. And he made all these escape tunnels, gas chambers, all these horrible things took place there. And he would lure women from the fair to his home and kill them, and usually collect on like their insurance money. So it was a really wild time, and it just a very, very interesting book. Again, nonfiction, great story. Erik Larson is the artist. I keep saying artist. He is the author of this book. He's written a number of really, really good books. If you have not read Devil in the White City, again, this is about a 9 out of 10 book, so it's definitely worth the read. Let's do some mysteries next. One of my favorite books that I'm glad I got, because this lady had just written this story, Joanne Fluke, The Chocolate Chip Cookie Murder. She has now written probably 20 books. This is her first one. And, of course, I got to meet her. And hopefully, it is to Dave, Joanne Fluke, June 10th, 2000. So this is literally, I'm recording this on the 9th. It'll be the 10th in about 14 minutes. 26 years ago. A quarter of a century. That's crazy to think about. What I loved about her talk of this book, and I'm going to make sure, it's got to be a first edition. Yep, first printing. What I loved about this is she also gave us a recipe, for cookies. And that's the back of the card. Isn't that cool? I thought that was a really nice addition to having the book talk and everything like that. I bought this at Mysteries to Die For, one of my favorite mystery bookstores. It was in Thousand Oaks. I talked about it on the last video I did, or a couple videos ago. Paid $20. And then tax was $1.45. And just how cool is that? So anyway, I have that. And I mean, she's done like, blueberry cheesecake mystery and double chocolate chip cookie mystery and everything like that now. So she's written probably 20 books. Again, this is her first one, first edition signed. I'm so happy I have this, just because I thought she was also such a neat lady in her talk. Keeping on with the mysteries, I brought a couple books from Dover Press. And Dover Press had this great series. The first one I'll show you is the ghost stories of J.S. LeFanu. So this is Joseph Sheridan LeFanu, one of the late 19th century authors, most famous for Carmilla. And Carmilla was a lesbian vampire story. It predates Dracula by just a couple of years. And it is what Hammer horror movies use for like the vampire lovers, those types of films. And so it's a really great short story. He also did Green Tea. Let's see what else is in this collection here. And then Dover really was such a great book author or a book publisher. So we've got Squire Toby's Will, Madame Crowell's Ghost, Green Tea, Carmilla, The Dead Sexton, Ghost Stories of the Tiled House, Sir Dominic's Bargain, just to name a few. There's about 15 stories in here. And how long is this book? Just under 500 pages. They have other books as well at the end that they suggest that they've published. And this book was $14.95 in the U.S., $22.50 in Canada. And I've had this forever. Not forever. Copyright on this book, 1964. I probably picked it up in the 80s. The other book by Dover, and it should say Dover right there on the edge, right down there at the bottom, The Ghost Stories of Mrs. J.H. Riddell. I have not read this. I know I got this from like a Scholastic book fair when I was a kid, and sadly it does have some insect damage right there at the top. See if we have a copyright page here. 1977. So yeah, I probably got this in 78 or 79. Some of the stories here, and there's about 12, 15 here also. Mrs. Riddell, Mid-Victorian Ghosts and Christmas Annuals. Sandy the Tinker, A Strange Christmas Game, Walnut Treehouse, Old Mrs. Jones, A Terrible Vengeance, and so on. So what a fun book. I have not read that. Definitely looking forward to reading it. Some local interest. These are two books by Elizabeth Pomeroy. And these are books about the San Gabriel Valley, historic and natural landmarks of the San Gabriel Valley. It's called Lost and Found. And we have Lost and Found 2. I have not read the second one. I have read the first one. But what I love about this is they go through all the cities that are near me, including like Pasadena, Monrovia, Sierra Madre, Garden Grove, Montebello, Whittier, Claremont, Covina, Rancho Cucamonga, Upland to Eagle Rock. So a lot of cool places. They'll show a picture, and then they'll give you the city, where it's located, and what kind of cool like history it has, and what you can do while you're there. San Dimas, let's take a look at that. It has the old San Dimas Railroad, which actually I drove by tonight. The Madonna statue, the Madonna of the Hill in Upland as you go up Euclid Avenue, you'll see that. Old hospitals, this old packing house, which is now an antique store called King Richard's Antiques, all sorts of old buildings. There's even one place up in Sierra Madre that I was not familiar with, but it's kind of like Knott's Berry Farm in a way. It has like berry fields, and you can buy jelly there. I thought that was the coolest thing. So again, Lost and Found by Elizabeth Pomeroy. I just picked up the second volume, as you can see, for $1, and I can't wait to go through that and see what other landmarks that she found. So I've got 5 more books. The first one is by David Koenig, and this is called More Mouse Tales. And it is a closer peek backstage at Disneyland. It is a very fun book. It tells you not only a little bit more of the history of the park, which for me is like some place I would go to all the time. I think I talked about that in the last video. But it's a place that I always grew up with. So growing up, you would go about every 6 months to Disneyland. It was like a really cool thing. And then when I got to be working full time and I had some free time in the nights, I would go there almost every night, at least 3 nights a week for a few years, and cruise around Disneyland. And you start to pick up a little bit more of the lore and history and hidden places. For instance, I don't know if there's one, if it's still there today, but above Pirates of the Caribbean, that ride, there was an art gallery there. And so just little things like that you'll be able to find. This talks about them. It also talks about some of the hijinks and stuff like that the workers would get into after hours. A book about books, and I need to do probably a video on that. I have so many because I love books about books. I think I've read about 10 or 12 of them, and I've liked 11 of those 12. This one I absolutely love. It's called A Pound of Paper by John Baxter, Confessions of a Book Addict. The only thing about this book that you have to consider is that it's English. So the guy's writing a little bit funny in terms of the language and the cadence and all of that. And in fact, I think he's originally from Australia, the author, but he spends a lot of his time in England. Stories include left-handed stories about collecting books. Left-handed guns, the rule of the game, Star Begotten, Reader, Haunted Screens, a regional collection, Bookshop Dreams, Queen's Quorum. He lists Queen's Quorum and Haycraft Queen Cornerstones. So he lists in the back of the book some of the most important lists of mystery stories and things like that. So those are included in here as well. But it talks about his lifelong obsession with books. Also in the adventure stories, if you haven't read Around the World in 80 Days, this is a really quick read and a really fun read. It is by Jules Verne, and Jules Verne is an amazing author, late 1800s, and this is, I've read, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, The Mysterious Island, and Around the World in 80 Days. It is a story of basically this very British guy from the 1800s. He goes and is a member of a club, and one of the guys at the club says, there's no way you can get around the world in 80 days, and I'll pay you all this money if you're able to. And it just tells his stories in all these different countries and all the different modes of transportation. And it's just really, really cool. Also, the wonderful friendship that he has with his assistant. 2 more. One of them is this one, The Wright 3. This is a book by, and I'm not even sure I can pronounce this, Blue Balliett. I don't know. But she, or he, I don't know. Maybe there's a picture back here. But this is an author who's written several books that kind of deal with art and art history. They wrote Chasing Vermeer, which is, Vermeer is an old Dutch painter from the 1700s. That was a great book. I've read that. I haven't read this. This is about the Roby House, though, I believe, which is in Chicago. So, Super Sleuths, Petra and Calder. Calder is a famous artist, too. With Calder's old friend Tommy, have been cryptically drawn into another mystery, this time involving a Frank Lloyd Wright architectural masterpiece, the Roby House. When the kids' 6th grade class attempts to save the house from demolition, eerie events are reported. Voices float out from within, shadows shift behind the art glass windows, even the roof moves. Soon, Petra, Calder, and Tommy are involved in a frightening search for ghosts, hidden treasure, and a coded message left behind by Wright. Can they pursue justice and escape with their lives? Obviously, it's a young adult book, but it's really, really, I love Chasing Vermeer, so hopefully the Wright 3 is also in that same vein. All right. There's one more. Here it is. This one may be a little silly. Dave, why do you have a children's book called My Extra Mom, which is about marriages and stepmothers and stepparents and things like that? Well, the reason I have this, and I did buy it, is it is written by Gina Grad. And Gina Grad is one of my friends. And so she did a lovely inscription here. And she's all, Dear Dave, I can't tell you how much your support of my project means to me. You have always been so wonderful and kind. Thank you again, and may the world always be filled with extra love. Love, Gina Grad. And I adore that. I adore her. She is a radio personality, and she does voiceover work and things like that. She was on the Adam Carolla show for many, many years. And I got to meet her and hang out with her. We've hung out several times. And just a great person. In fact, I'll tell you this last quick story before we go. It was one of my birthdays, and I literally left my birthday party to go and hang out with her at the Rose Bowl because there was a blues, beers, and something else fest, barbecue fest. That was it. And so she was there, and we got to hang out and chat, and just it was wonderful. So anyway, those are the 15 books I'm covering tonight. I'm just making sure there's none that are left or anything like that. Yeah, I got them all. All right, so I hope you enjoyed the video. I will see you shortly with another video. It's either going to be gardening, maybe it'll be on books about stamps, or probably maybe another collection of books from the closet. I don't know. We'll see. I'll see you in a couple of days.